Welcome, Dr. Kalla.
Yeah, thanks, Chairperson, for the kind introduction. And at the outset, I thank Dr. Ashutosh and Dr. Pallavi for inviting me for this talk. And it's always a pleasure actually to go to Varanasi, but this time, unfortunately, we are all stuck up because of the COVID, and we all are sitting in our houses and we are doing the talk. But it's because Dr. Ashutosh has seen to it that the science goes on. So my topic is a little bit different from what we have been discussing since morning. So I'll be talking about subclinical hypothyroidism in cardiovascular disease, and I'll be discussing whether it's the time to revise the treatment strategy. So this is the scope of my talk. I'll be talking about that what is subclinical hypothyroidism, how it affects the cardiometabolic parameters, what is the evidence that whether it affects, and what is the evidence of treatment and whether we should treat or not treat. And then finally, what is the take home, that what should we exactly do in such cases. Now, when we say subclinical hypothyroidism means that the TSH is above the normal limit of the upper normal limit. So now that is also a controversy, that what is the upper normal limit. Now, most of the times when we talk about younger patients, we say it's like above 4.5, we say it's more than the normal limit. Above 5, we say, yeah, it's the higher TSH value, which fits into the criteria of subclinical. But at that point of time, what happens? The T4 and T3 are normal. So the T4 and T3 remain normal, but the TSH crosses the normal limit. So what happens that this is a continuum. So patient starts getting a higher TSH value, where T4, T3 is normal. The body is trying to compensate. Over a period of time, in some cases, the body may not be able to compensate, and the TSH goes very high beyond 10, and the T4 levels go low. Then we call it as overt hypothyroidism. If you see the prevalence, it ranges in different populations. They have shown from 7.5 to 10 to 11% in females, and it is a little bit lower in males, like 3 to 4%. And we know that what we are discussing today is the relation of subclinical hypothyroidism to cardiovascular disease. And we know that subclinical hypothyroidism can be associated with higher levels of serum cholesterol, higher levels of low density lipoprotein. It can be associated with lower levels of HDL. It can be associated with higher levels of triglycerides. And there are various studies in world literature which have shown little bit and some correlation with the high TSH levels, that is in the subclinical range, and high cholesterol levels. As I was saying that when we talk about elevated TSH, it is basically more than 4.5, with circulating T4 and T3 remain normal in the normal range of the population reference range. It can be from 9 to 11% in females, a little bit lower in males from 3 to 5%. Important to understand that increases with advancing age. So we have to understand that 4.5 TSH cutoff may not remain for all ages. As the person goes or grows older, the TSH may go higher, and that may be a normal TSH for that person. Like if I say a 70 years old person, a level of 6.5 to 7 may be counted as normal. But for a person who is like 45, 40, 35, a TSH level beyond 4.5 may be counted as abnormal. When you see the prevalence, there's a strong female predilection in the younger population, but when we see in the older population, this predilection is not there mostly. And we know that there are various studies with lipid metabolism, atherosclerosis, cardiac contractility in patients with subclinical hypothyroidism. There are studies to show where the TSH normalization has shown some benefit, which we are going to discuss in the next 20 minutes. And the progression to manifest hypothyroidism is around 4% per year in the presence of TPO antibody. This is very important to understand. Because if a patient is TPO positive, their risk of progression to overt hypothyroidism is higher. And if the patient is TPO negative, it may be only 2%. So we also need to know that there are various other things which we need to know along with the subclinical or the TSH values. We need to see the patient's TSH values. We need to see that the T4 and T3 are normal. We need to see if the patient has a family history of hypothyroidism. We also need to check whether the patient has a goiter. We also need to, that is a swelling of the thyroid gland. We also need to check if the patient has TPO positivity. Because why it is important? Because TSH levels may normalize in many. So what may happen that it is important and it's imperative that whenever we have a patient who has come to us with a high TSH value, and we are not sure whether to treat or not to treat, it's always better to confirm it at around 6 weeks to 3 months interval to double confirm and see if the TSH is still remaining high. Because many a times it is seen that there may be a transient elevation of TSH because of many factors. We also know that sometimes because of the sick state and many other things, there may be transient elevation. And sometimes in normal people also there may be transient elevation, which may come to normal range over a period of time. That's why it's very, very important that we do two tests at least 2 to 3 months apart. If not 2 months possible, at least 6 weeks apart to confirm that the patient has an elevation of TSH and then label a person as subclinical hypothyroidism. It is also known and seen that a transient elevation of TSH may normalize within 3 months in around 60% of the cases and after 5 years in around 62% of the cases. But what we have to understand before we see the next part of the talk, that this is a continuum. Now, what do we mean by that? Continuum means that this is going to be a progressive thing. So, okay, we know that there may be patients who may revert back to normal. There may be patients who may continue to be at that level. There may be patients who may revert to absolutely normal range. But there are a group of patients who will continue to develop overt hypothyroidism over a period of time. And it is not that a TSH9 is not deleterious and a TSH11 is deleterious, because it is a continuum. So it starts from 4.5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then it crosses. So in patients whom it goes higher and higher, it is a continuum, and over a period of time, you may see that the problems escalate. So that is why so much of discussion about subclinical hypothyroidism. We know that thyroid regulates many of the cardiac specific genes. There may be a lot of positive regulation with the beta adrenergic receptor, natriuretic hormone, voltage gated potassium channels, maybe negative regulation which happens because of the T3 on the adenylyl cyclase catalytic subunits, thyroid hormone receptor alpha-1, sodium calcium exchanger. So there may be a positive regulation, there may be a negative regulation, and there's a fine balance which is maintained. Now what happens, or what are the hemodynamic effects which happen? As I said, it's a continuum. So it's not that it doesn't happen in subclinical and it happens only in overt. So it happens, but it happens in a lesser quantity or lesser amount with subclinical. As the patient progresses to overt, it increases. So we can see that obviously there may be a decreased cardiac output, there may be increased systemic vascular resistance. This may happen in subclinical as well as overt, maybe lesser in subclinical, more in overt. Decreased arterial compliance, narrow pulse pressure, increased diastolic pressure, atherosclerosis, which we are talking about, increased risk of coronary artery disease. Then there may be endothelial dysfunction, there may be decreased nitric oxide production, decreased vascular smooth muscle relaxation, there may be decreased cardiac contractility, there may be decreased vascular smooth muscle relaxation. So these are the molecular mechanisms which can be there secondary to hypothyroidism, which is untreated on the heart. So we know that obviously there is some amount of endothelial dysfunction which happens. There may be release of some inflammatory cytokines. There may be dyslipidemia. All these can cause endothelial dysfunction. There may be diastolic hypertension. There may be problems with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic activity. All these can have a bearing on the cardiac contractility as well as atherosclerosis, and it's some way contributing to failure. Subclinical hypothyroidism leads to dyslipidemia, leads to low-grade chronic inflammatory factors, more oxidant stress, can cause insulin resistance as well. All this in turn leads to endothelial dysfunction, can cause a procoagulant state, may lead to an impaired vascular tone, can cause leukocyte adhesion and infiltration, leading to smooth muscle proliferation. Obviously, all these propagate formation of atherosclerotic lesion or cardiovascular disease events. So we know that all these are a continuum. Again, I'm saying that same word because we know that this is going to be a process which starts at the stage of subclinical, progresses forward as the patient progresses to overt hypothyroidism. But as I said, that all patients may not progress to overt hypothyroidism. There may be a group of patients who may progress. There may be a group of patients who may recover. So, studies to show there may be some early impaired relaxation which has been demonstrated in patients with subclinical hypothyroidism. There may be a prolongation of the isovolumetric relaxation time, and there may be some effect in patients who have even borderline subclinical hypothyroidism. But important to understand that most of these studies have been done in patients who are younger. Also, we have to know that the effect or the consequences of subclinical hypothyroidism may actually depend on the duration and the degree of elevation. So subclinical hypothyroids 5 may be causing less problem as compared to a TSH level of 8. Also, we know that it's not only the hypercholesterolemia or the diastolic hypertension, there may be also some disrupted coagulability which may happen. There may be increase in the insulin resistance, which I showed you in the previous mechanism slide. So let us come and see the data of subclinical hypothyroidism and lipids. Now, there are studies to show that there may be dyslipidemia or lipid elevation in subclinical hypothyroidism, but there are some studies which have not confirmed these data. Again, we have to understand that we have to see the population in these different studies and also see the absolute level of the TSH. Like if suppose the TSH level is a bit lower, you may not see so much of discrepant values, but if the TSH level is nearing 10, you may see more of the dyslipidemia. There are studies where the people have tried to supplement with levothyroxine therapy in patients who have mild hypothyroidism or subclinical form of TSH less than 10. And they have found some improvement in the lipid parameters as well as in the cardiovascular risk factors. But above 10, we have most of the data where TSH seems to be the best predictor of cardiovascular disease in a patient with hypothyroidism, especially when the values are crossing the 10 mark. When we talk about atherosclerosis, we know that there is a flow-mediated endothelium-dependent vasodilation which is impaired in patients with subclinical hypothyroidism. There is data for that. And this could be an early development sign or early sign in the development of atherosclerosis. The vascular endothelium definitely plays a key role in the control of vasomotor tone, which is mediated by various substances like nitric oxide, endothelin, etc. So there is hypercholesterolemia. It can lead to oxidative stress. It leads to the impairment of nitric oxide bioactivity and also to the unopposed paradoxical vasoconcentration of the epicardial conductance vessels. Also, it has been seen that when the treatment is given, there may be some reversal of these abnormalities. There may be some reduction of the cholesterol. There may be reduction of the triglyceride. There may be elevation of the HDL. So there are studies to show that subclinical hypothyroidism can be associated with atherosclerosis progression, can increase the risk of myocardial infarction. Even in studies have been done with subclinical hypothyroidism following thyroiditis, where they have seen dyslipidemia and progression of atherosclerosis in these patients as well. And there are studies in younger population where they have tried to supplement with a small dose of levothyroxine, like 25 to 50, and they have found improvement in the CV risk factors. If you see various studies, like I have just tried to put the important studies here. So reanalysis of the UK-based Wickham survey showed that there was a significant higher risk or incidence of ischemic heart disease and related mortality in patients with subclinical hypothyroidism as well. The EPIC-Norfolk study, if you see, did not reveal an increase in the coronary heart disease and all-cause mortality across a decade of follow-up. Now you have to understand that there may be different groups of patients in these. Some may be younger, some may be older. Then there was a meta-analysis which included around 11 prospective cohorts across 5 continents. And they found that subclinical hypothyroidism was found to be associated with increased risk of coronary heart disease events and mortality. And especially the patients who had a higher TSH value showed a higher risk. So that is also important. As I said, a TSH5 may not be so deleterious as a TSH8. So it's a continuum. As it progresses and as the TSH goes higher, the risk may go higher. There are studies to show increased diastolic blood pressure in subclinical hypothyroidism, increased systolic blood pressure as well, increased triglycerides, increased total cholesterol, and increased low-density lipoprotein cholesterol. And there are some studies and meta-analysis which have shown that endothelial dysfunction may go on progressing as the TSH levels increase. So it may be linear correlation with the TSH levels as well. And obviously, if there is a patient who has a bit of a diastolic hypertension because secondary to subclinical hypothyroidism untreated, has dyslipidemia, it can actually propagate and increase the progression of atherosclerosis and endothelial dysfunction. One of the studies which we did in younger women around the mean age of 31, and there were 58 women, and we compared them with 49 controls, and we found that there was a cardiac autonomic dysfunction in patients with subclinical hypothyroidism. Again, I want to stress here that these were younger women around the mean age of 31 to 40 years. So we concluded that these women had lower parasympathetic activity as compared to controls, and there was a predominance of sympathetic activity in these cases. So we found that they may have a more of autonomic dysfunction, cardiac autonomic dysfunction. They had dyslipidemia as well. So we have to also see that it is also important that we have to take into consideration the patient's age, the other comorbidities before we decide which patients need treatment. Also, hypothyroidism has been shown to exhibit a prothrombotic state, which has been shown in some of the studies. It's not like we have big data for that, but this was one of the good studies which was published where they have showed primary and secondary hemostasis in patients with subclinical and the effect of levothyroxine treatment. And they found that subclinical hypothyroidism patients exhibit a prothrombotic status, which was so shown to be reverted with levothyroxine treatment. Then there was one study where they have tried to see the coagulation factor 8 and fibrinogen levels in patients with thyroid disorders. And they found that both hyperthyroidism and mild hypothyroidism were found to be hypercoagulable states or a prothrombotic state, and moderate to severe hypothyroidism also as a hypocoagulable state. The million-dollar question comes: should we treat everyone? So it is, seeing all this data, it seems appropriate to recommend thyroid hormone for all patients with subclinical from a cardiovascular perspective. But that's not the truth. We have to see that the benefits should outweigh the risk. So that is true for a younger patient. We have real-world data where they have shown that subclinical hypothyroidism patients who were treated had a lower incidence of cardiovascular disease and mortality and ischemic heart disease. But if you come to the older lot, they have not shown the same therapeutic benefit. If you see the blood pressure, there's a definite association. Lipid levels, yes. Metabolic syndrome, yes. We can say moderate quality evidence. Heart failure and cardiovascular mortality, we still have a possible evidence. In this study, what they tried to see, the CABG patients, where they tried to give levothyroxine in patients who had higher TSH values, and they found that there was a definite reduction in the morbidity and mortality in these patients who were preoperatively supplemented with levothyroxine. But the important answer to this is these patients were younger. We have to understand that whichever studies have shown some conclusive benefit with levothyroxine treatment in subclinical hypothyroidism, where the treatment is indicated, whether the patient has dyslipidemia, patient has overt symptoms, fatigue, cognition symptoms, is having TPO positivity, family history of hypothyroidism, goiter. These are the patients who benefit or who may benefit from levothyroxine supplementation, a small dose. But most of the studies have shown that the benefit is sure in younger lots. The younger patients show benefit. This was one of the studies where they tried to see younger women with subclinical, and they found that 18 months of treatment resulted in the normalization of systolic and diastolic blood pressure and total and LDL cholesterol and decreased carotid intima media thickness. And another study, they found that when the patients with subclinical hypothyroidism and coronary artery disease, there was no change in the group which was randomized to levothyroxine, but those who received placebo had echocardiographic evidence of progression to myocardial diastolic dysfunction. So though the levothyroxine treatment did not show a further benefit, but the placebo arm had some problems. So meaning to say, if you treat younger patients with subclinical where the treatment is justified, they have dyslipidemia, again I say they have TPO positivity, they have goiter, they have indication for treatment, they have a atherosclerosis, or you feel that they have some symptoms which can be attributed to subclinical hypothyroidism, you may give them the benefit of treatment. But there is no consensus as yet. We know that up to levels of 7 may not be important to be treated in elderly because this could be a physiological rise in old age. But there are studies to show that patients who have positive TPO antibody with a borderline high TSH in the elderly age group, they may benefit sometimes from treatment. Analysis of prospective cohort studies to see the subclinical hypothyroidism and the risk of cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. They took around 35 eligible articles and they tried to show whether subclinical hypothyroidism was associated with cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. And they found the relative risk to be 1.33 for that, and the relative risk for all-cause mortality 1.20. Important point to note here, the association was not observed in participants aged more than equal to 65. This analysis showed that participants with subclinical hypothyroidism and high CVD risk showed a significantly higher risk of all-cause mortality. This relative risk for CVD 2.2 and the relative risk for all-cause mortality 1.66, whereas those with subclinical hypothyroidism and low CVD risk did not. We have to understand that a younger lot, there is more of data for treatment with subclinical and showing a benefit in the cardiovascular risk factors. But older population data where they have shown that patients who were more than 65 and had high CVD risk, they showed significant high risk of all-cause mortality in the subclinical hypothyroidism group. So here, this was a subgroup analysis of 6 studies where the mean participant age was more than 65 and they had high CVD risk and definitely showed a significant high risk of all-cause mortality. But we have some other data as well. This was the study which was published in JAMA, and there they have tried to see the risk for the low TSH value, middle normal, high normal, and subclinical hypothyroidism range. So low normal, they classified in men as 0.34 to 1.19, middle normal 1.20 to 1.93, high normal 1.54 to 5.6. Women, low normal was defined as 0.34 to 1.19, middle normal 1.20 to 1.97, and high normal 1.98 to 5.6. And again, they have tried to see the hazard ratio for low normal 1.51, normal you can see 1.4, and you can see for the total effect for the hazard ratio for subclinical hypothyroidism in men 1.66, for women 2.13, direct effect if you see 1.65, for women it is 1.92, indirect effect 1, and for women it is 1.11 respectively. So cardiovascular disease mediated 14.3 and 5.9% of the associations of subclinical hypothyroidism and high normal TSH with all-cause mortality respectively, with the CVD mediation being the most pronounced in women, 7.5 to 13.57% of the association, and participants aged 60 years and older. That was 6 to 14.8% of the association. Now, this was another study, which is a landmark article of the TRUST study group, where they have tried to supplement the thyroid hormones for older adults with subclinical hypothyroidism. There you can see that they've concluded that levothyroxine treatment provided no apparent benefits in older population in subclinical. But I would just like to add a comment here, because if you see the TSH reduction they aimed at was too low. So we still need to have more studies and more data where we may try to keep the TSH not very low, not like a level of 1 or 2 or 3 in older population, maybe a level reaching 4, 4.5 or 5, and then see whether it benefits. Because if we try to achieve a TSH level of like 2, then we will not benefit an old patient with levothyroxine supplementation. But if I try to bring the TSH down from 8.5 or 9 to 4.5, or 5, then maybe I may see some benefit and may not see the harm of the levothyroxine supplementation. I would say the TSH levels rise as the people grow older or they age. So the TSH levels may be higher for an older lot of 65 to 70, where a level up to 6.5 to 7 may be taken as normal. But if I'm trying to treat a level of 9, I should not try to bring the level down to 2 in an older population of a 70 years old person. I may try to bring the level down to maybe 4.5 to 5. And maybe that point of time, I will cause no harm. Maybe I will give some benefit. That is why sometimes we may overestimate the true prevalence of subclinical hypothyroidism in persons older than 70. And many of the studies have taken a TSH of 4.5 to 5 only as a higher level for an older population of 70. So maybe if we take a TSH level of 7 as up to normal, and maybe if we treat 8.5 to 9 and see the cardiovascular risk reduction in them with bringing their TSH level down to 4.5 to 5 only, maybe we may see some benefit in them. My take home are in patients who have circulating TPO antibodies, we know that there's a greater risk of progression from subclinical to overt. So this could be one group where we treat. Younger population, infertility, cognition problems, fatigue, all these are usual indications. Subclinical hypothyroidism may be associated with an increased risk of heart failure, coronary artery disease events, and mortality from coronary heart disease. In addition, middle-aged patients with subclinical hypothyroidism may have cognitive impairment when they are in the most productive years of their life. They may have non-specific symptoms like fatigue and altered mood as well. In the absence of large randomized trials showing benefit from levothyroxine therapy, the rationale is based on potentially decreasing the risk of adverse cardiovascular events, and we have to monitor these patients for progression to overt hypothyroidism. As of now, we have more conclusive evidence of levothyroxine treatment benefit in younger population less than 65. More than 65, we still need more evidence. And as I said, if we start taking a level up to 6.5 to 7 as normal for them, and maybe target 8.5 to 9 with a normal T4 level as a subclinical and try to bring their TSH to just 4.5 to 5, maybe we may see more benefit in this lot rather than seeing any harm. So I think with this I end, and we can take the questions.